Parental encroachment. From our summation, my parents were trying to take our child as one of their own. I heard that they were entertaining the idea of attempting to get grandparent custody. I wonder how fit my parents are to raise a child once again. I can only assume due to past experiences that my parents were just trying to spread gossip to scare us and have no intention or motivation to undertake such an endeavor. One thing they both lack is confidence. My wife made up her mind for good when she heard this information. It hurts her and it only strengthens my viewpoint. We provide for our son, we keep him safe from day to day, we support him financially, we changed his diapers as a baby, woke up to feed him, help him with his problems, sit with him to do his homework, and explain life to him in a sensitive, comforting manner. My parents cannot dip their collective feet into his life whenever they feel like it, and then figure they're the boss, knowing what's best for him. I hope they've considered having a healthy relationship with him, but I doubt that seriously. I'm not sure they are capable. As far as grandparent custody is concerned, a major factor would be the best interest of the child. My own parents have produced two other children that cannot bear to be in their company because of the rampant narcissism. After all that's happened and the type of people they are, they actually think they are fit parents for him? This whole thing is surreal. In a court of law, do my parents think they could stand against an entire group of people telling the truth about how they are? Not the family I grew up with. I think this is just another power play, so they can control things completely. They always appeared to hate each other. They certainly hated me and my sister. Lastly, I asked politely for my mother to stop all these various behaviors. I asked for the boundaries I needed and was met with an emotional firestorm of uncooperativeness. What I remember the most is your father loves you with all of his heart. This is ironic because that man treated me so badly that I vowed to never let him hurt me again. My mother and I had many conversations about this subject and agreed on it. He treated her terribly as well. He was so terrible that I used his parenting skills as an example of what not to do. It made parenting really easy, I do admit. All I had to do was remember the time I was taught a particular lesson and do the exact opposite. His constant reminders of me being worthless well into my adult life caused me to think that I was actually worthless, and I have had to spend my life working hard to convince myself that I actually was not. I have succeeded to a great degree. If you would have asked me then what I thought of myself, I would have said I am a worthless piece of shit that will never amount to anything. Now I say I'm an adjusted adult who has problems that I can deal with, but I really am worth a lot. I still have that old mantra in my head, a gift from my parents I'll carry till I die. The main thing that I had to do to stop the negative feelings was to get my father out of my life. My mother is inevitably included in that decision because we all know that they are a match. I wouldn't ask a married couple to be divided. It really seems like that what both of you want are just slaves that say yes to your every request. We just cannot live that way. I'm prepared to let my son go when he needs to be independent. I have been working on it mentally for a few years now, so it will be easier for me to cope with him growing up and leaving, and so it will be easier for him to leave me and his mother. I want him to succeed and not have to think about me too much when he's an adult. If I'm lucky, he will only recite the positive memories and forget the negative ones. I do realize that he will have some issues with the way he was raised. I will forget about myself at that point and try to do what I can to make him feel all right about my bad decisions in the past. My son and I are friends now, and I give him anything he needs. I have never told him he was worthless or failed to give him anything he needed. To be free is the gift I give to him, and I do not require any form of repayment for raising him, emotionally or financially. I'll respect his future wife and children and cherish every bit of it. If I have a problem and start acting a fool, I will check myself and stop. If I'm too ignorant to see how I'm acting and my son tells me I'm doing so, I will fix it or have the common decency to leave him alone. I view anything else as a failure in my parenting and as a human being. When I get old, I do not expect him to take care of me. I will take care of myself the same way I always have. I personally wasn't afforded these luxuries. Both of my parents were seemingly trying to secure a position in me or my sister's care when they got too old to take care of themselves. That's not a problem at all, but it wasn't being said. Everyone was just being pushed in that direction. If anyone fell out of line with that narrative, it was met with anger. Through watching you be so obsessed with the subject, I'm now totally against a grown child's obligation to take care of their aging parents. I will never expect my son to do such a thing. It causes too much guilt. It's entirely too stressful for the adult child. Of course, I do have to admit that if they would have come through for me in my adult life and been the kind of people that deserve said treatment, I would have been happy to do it. As I sit here and edit this at almost 50 years old, it all still rings true. I still think we could have been friends. They didn't want that. They wanted genetically produced emotional and physical slaves. Just always really hits home with me, all of it, you know. I mean, I grew up with this shit and I had to deal with it. A lot of people might say, hey, it ain't a big deal or anything like that. Well, it turned out it was with me, and I think it is with everybody, their parents. And I've always said our parents indelibly we are products of that, of being raised by our parents in the way that they did it. So if you're raising kids, you know, you're not going to be perfect. I wasn't perfect, but watch yourself. The thing about the taking care of your parents when they're old, I don't have a problem with that. But the other than being senile, the parent has to help out. We're running through stuff with even my wife's mother. That's like, you know, it's, come on, people. Can we do something here? Can something work out here some way? In some way, you know, I don't think anybody asked too much. But my parents just really, they were scared of it, I guess, or maybe they felt like they were deserved or entitled. But I don't know. You know, if you're going to be friends with your kid, if you want your kid to take care of you, you got to be friends with them, and then maybe you could feel a little bit entitled. This paragraph here about letting my son go when he needs to be independent, I've done that. The thing is you know, we've made mistakes as parents, and my son's a parent now, and he's going to understand all these wonderful things that have to do with kids. But I did it. I didn't act like my parents. I know that for sure. But you know, when I'm screwing up, I've asked him plenty of times to please make sure that he tells me. He knows that in the future to let me know when I'm screwing up, and I will fix that. I will have, you know, at the very least, an adult conversation about it. I'm not going to get narcissistic. And, you know, my parents always won. I never won, nor did my sister, nor did anybody win with my parents. With me, you can, in fact, win if you're right and logical. I think that if everybody acted that way, that the world would be a much better place. Parents and children would certainly get along better. But me and my son are friends. You know, things change over time, and you know, I'll never disrespect the guy. You know, I love him, and you know, life turns out the way that it does. But hey, I've stood on my own 2 feet, and I've done everything that I set out to do, and I feel pretty confident about that. So, you know, my parents cannot. My dad missed it totally because he died. My mother still lives, and doesn't care. Same way. This same stuff will be happening with her. Stopping negative feelings, the main way to get rid of that, this for everybody out there, get away from them. If they're toxic, get away from them. That's what you got to do. My mantra was that I was a piece of shit. I still kind of say that in the mirror. I really don't, but it really, you know, the grandparent custody thing I'll touch on lastly. I've known other people to get kind of scared about this because they've grown up thinking that their parent has like all the power, like parent equals God. And so, someone told me that they were talking about that. I think my sister was talking to them when I wasn't. And they were like, oh, Dan smokes pot, which I'll let everybody know, and I always have. You know, I smoke pot, that's what I do. And that was their grounds for thinking about getting parent custody. But, you know, it really put me through a lot. I've seen other people go through a lot with it, too, trying to respect their parents. And like, oh, my God, maybe they can actually do this. Come on, guys, they can't. You would have to be a heroin addict that literally abused your child, which is terrible. That how far they let it go, probably. But I'll actually leave it with. I was working in an office building in downtown Dayton years ago when my son was young, and I think actually this one I was going through this and writing this, and there was a guy that mediated people losing their kids and actually more losing their property in Dayton, Ohio because they found drugs. And I said, do you ever find like pot and get rid of people for that with their kids and stuff? He's like, man, if we took kids over people smoking pot, there'd be a lot of kids out there without parents. So keep that in mind. That was even like 15 or 20 years ago when people cared about pot a little bit more. So, you know, there you go. Be nice to your children and smoke more pot.